Hey, this is Joe from Home Studio Corner. Today we're going to talk about production, specifically a little rule that will help you get your productions on track and keep them interesting. It's called the verse to rule. More on that in a second. So when you're producing a song, you imagine a typical verse, chorus, bridge, chorus song, okay? There are a lot of songs that I've heard produced by folks in their home studios, and they'll record it well. All the recordings will be fine. The mix will be fine, but I'll do this thing where as I'm listening, I'll skip through the song. So this is the start of the song, this is the end of the song, and I'll skip to different sections of the song and just notice how it sounds exactly the same. The first verse sounds the same as the second verse, the first chorus, second chorus, bridge. The whole thing just has kind of the same vibe. It's the same instruments, they're all playing at the same time, and there's no variation, there's no growth, there's no story being told by the music. I'm not talking about telling a story with the lyrics, I'm talking about letting the music by itself take you on a bit of a journey so that the song starts, and from that first downbeat to the final note in the song, you are constantly being surprised and delighted by what's happening in the music. Now, I don't mean to say that this has to happen every single time, but it's a formula that's worked for me and helped me, especially when I'm stuck on a song. I've got, drums, bass, guitars, and I'm like, I don't know what to do now. I've got kind of the bones, the skeleton of the thing, but I'm not sure what needs to be added or taken away to make it work. And that brings us to the topic of today's video, which is the verse 2 rule. And it's really simple. Make verse 2, over here, sound different from verse 1. Obviously, verse 2 will likely have different lyrics from verse 1, but make it musically different. Now, you can do that one of two ways. You can add things to verse 2 that you don't have in verse 1, or you can take things away from verse 2 that you have in verse 1. And what happens is you'll get in this habit of making sure verse 1 is great. You don't want it to be boring and then get exciting by verse 2. People might stop listening after the first verse if it's too boring. But also leaving something there that you can change later and making both verses stand alone as excellent, but also being different so that when we come out of that first chorus and we're back into verse 2, we're not thinking, oh, I already heard this one. We're hearing something a little bit different, and that's more than just the lyrics that are being sung. And this carries over as well to, if you extend this rule, let's make chorus 2 different from chorus 1, and if there's a third chorus, let's make that one a little different from all three. So I talked about there are two ways to do this, by adding things in the second verse or taking things away. I want to show you some examples of that rather than talk about it anymore. I've got 4 examples for you from 4 different EPs that I've put out where I do this. The first 2 are examples of taking something away in the second verse. Let's do those first. The first song here is a song called Mission. This is one, if you've gone through my Mix Together series, we mix this song as a part of that, and that's free over at homestudiocorner.com/MT for Mix Together. So let's take a quick listen. This is the one that starts off. Okay, let's get to the verse. I'll play you the first verse, and then we'll skip over to the second.
What's in it for me? 30 years doing this same old thing, always wondering, hey, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Gotta know what's the ROI, gotta know if it's worth my time. Ooh, my time.
All right, so now we're into a pre-chorus that gets into the chorus, okay? So let's come over to the second verse after the chorus.
I got a mission. They tell us it's a zero-sum game. If I want it, then I've got to take it away.
Did you see what happened? The first verse has guitars just going jing, 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 just guitar, drums, bass, rocking out, just playing some power chords, having fun. The second one, the guitar drops out and goes dum, chicka, chicka. So guitar is playing just basically nothing, and so it's really just a drums and bass section, and then we add in some claps. Dun, 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 that thing you do rhythm. So here's verse 2.
They tell us it's a zero-sum game. If I want it, then I've got.
Back to verse 1.
Old thing, always wondering, hey, what's in it for me?
So in that one, the guitar's going dum 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 the whole time. Second, when the guitar kind of sits back, lets the bass take the forefront for a second, and also adds in the claps. So we took something away, we added something in, did a little bit of both, and that's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking that the second verse needs to be so dramatically different, like you're listening to a different song. It's just, if it sounds like you literally took verse 1, copied it, and pasted it for verse 2, I would say, even if you literally did that, let's add something or take something away so there is a difference there, so it feels like we're moving in a different direction. All right, the next song is a song called Comfort off of my EP, Someone to Blame, and this is another example of taking things away. So this one starts pretty quick. Here's the first verse.
Look in the mirror, doctor, I've been feeling down. Look in the mirror and only see a frown. I need a savior, 'cause I am ill. So come on, doc, let's see that little pill.
All right, so real simple chord progression, couple of guitars chugging on the chords. Let's go to verse 2 and see what happens.
TV, I got my eye on you. If you could see me, you'd see how little I do.
So this is similar to the last one. The main guitars that were chugging are gone, and now we just have drums and bass. So the bass is getting a little more of a feature again. I like my bass players. But also, the rhythm guitars are gone. We got this one lead guitar on the left going, but also there's this other part that was there during the first verse, but you can't really hear it super well because of the guitars. But in the second verse, we can hear it, and it's this organ that I just cranked the distortion on, so it almost sounds like a guitar. It's kind of like Smoke on the Water kind of sound. Listen in the background, you'll hear it going, blap, 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 blap.
If you could see me, you'd see how little I do. I think you can.
Played real simple, lead guitar and the organ really laid back. So this kind of dynamically we go intro, verse, chorus, and then this verse drops down to even a little less energy than the first verse, which maybe will clear things up as to why we do this, gives us even more room to grow into the second chorus. Right? We grow and then we drop off, and then the next chorus is going to feel bigger than the first, maybe just because we had the second verse be even chiller than the first. Does that make sense? All right, let's move on. Third example. Now, this is an example of adding something to the second verse to make it more interesting. So this one is the song Listen from my EP, Fighter. And here's how the first verse goes. Right here, I think. No, that's the chorus, dummy. Let's see here.
Look how far we've come. Our mothers would be proud. We say what's on our mind, no matter who we tear down.
So that's verse 1. Here comes verse 2.
Ooh, I've got something to do.
So if 2 verses before the chorus, it's fairly easy. Just add in an instrument for the second one. But then we get to the chorus and come to verse 3. And here's verse 3 is the one I'm more treating like the verse 2, if that makes sense. Let's listen to that one. All right, here it is.
I'm as guilty as the next man. I've got something brilliant to say, so please do not interrupt me. I can't let truth get in the way.
Compare that to the first and second verse.
You know that I'm smarter than you.
So we added a couple things. Full drum kit for that next verse after the chorus. That's really what I mean by verse 2, the after chorus verse. But then we added 2 of these ambient guitars with all this reverb, that one's playing more of a lead part, one's just diamond chords, but it's a whole different vibe than the first one. Still feels like the song, but it's a new take on it. And then that leads us into that second chorus that gets a little bit bigger.
I know I can hear you. I know you can hear me.
So that's set real quick. Let's talk about choruses. Here's the first chorus.
I know I can hear you. I know you can hear me.
A lot of times you want to make the first chorus solid, but leave some room to grow. So this first one is great. This second chorus adds in this guitar on the left that sounds like the edge guitar part. It's real simple. Bum, 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 bum. But it adds this extra energy to make verse or chorus 2 sound a little more unique from chorus 1.
I know I can hear you. I know you can hear me.
And for the most part, I think that's the only difference between chorus 1 and chorus 2. Again, these don't have to be massive, huge changes. It can be just subtle, but enough to make things interesting and keep them moving. How many times have I said interesting in this video? I apologize. All right, so here's the last example. This is a slow jam off of my most recent EP, Amen. The song's called Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. And let's get to the verse here. This is another example of adding 2 to create some difference in verse 2.
You are so much more than words upon a screen. I wish you would believe that you're mine.
So we're talking real chill, lots of space there. There's lots of room to grow here. This is probably the most obvious one of how to make the second verse work. Let's go find verse 2.
Oh, you are feeling me.
Now here's verse 2.
You always keep score of everything you've done. You don't realize that you've already won.
So this one, main difference is we added in this fun little clean guitar riff.
Of everything you've done.
Simple, not over the top, plays between the vocal parts, works really well, adds an extra something to that verse to make it a little different and interesting, aside from the lyrics. Great example. If you're a musician, maybe you're not even thinking about production at this point. If you're not, I don't know why you've made it this far in the video, but if you're a lead guitarist or really any musician that plays with other musicians, be thinking about your parts as well. Are you playing the exact same thing from the downbeat to the finish of the song? What are ways that you, as a performer, can change things up from the first to the second verse, from the first to the second chorus? If everybody in the band is doing this, or at least a few key components of the band are thinking in terms of that, you're going to end up with something that sounds really great. The first chorus is awesome. People think, oh, it can't get any better. Then you get into the final chorus and their heads explode because you've held back enough to just blow them away with all the cool stuff that's happening there. So it's not an example of, I tend to sometimes want to overdo things and add too much to the songs, but every example I gave you today is really just a matter of adding 1 or 2 things or taking away 1 or 2 things to make verse 2 stand on its own. Verse 2 is like, to me, you give me a song and just fast forward me to verse 2, and I feel like I'm going to have a good idea of what's going to be happening in the entire song. It's the defining moment of the song for me. Whenever I do critiques for people, first verse, first chorus, if I'm feeling good about that, I'll start to tense up waiting for verse 2, hoping that it does something different and I don't feel like it's just a copy and paste job from verse 1 in the first chorus. All right. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks for sticking around. If you have questions or need clarification, leave comments below. Be sure to subscribe, do all that stuff, share it with your friends, tell your doctor about Home Studio Corner. I'm kidding. And if you want to learn more from me, I've got a recording cheat sheet that covers a lot of ideas like this that go into the front end of making music, the production, as opposed to the back end, which is the mixing. In my opinion, the front end part's a lot more fun. A lot of great ideas there in this recording cheat sheet that you can grab at recordingcheatsheet.com. It's 100% free. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.